Hey there and welcome to Retro Tech, and this is the HP Desktop buy for £20 part 3. So in part 1 we took the computer apart, we bought it off of Facebook Marketplace, saw what we got for the money, and we we spent some time trying to get it into Windows 10, had to do a reinstall, and that's all that sort of happened in Windows, or in part 1. In part 2 we threw 4GB of extra RAM, so giving it a total of 8GB, and we ran some benchmark on it to see what we had. Now, since then, we tested some games. We showed that in part 2 as well. So we were able to get 5 out of the 6 games that we were benchmarking to run reasonably well, and one game that just would not play. We were getting like 1 or 2 frames per second, and that was just not playable. So today we have done some upgrades to the system. So we've got a GT640 graphics card, which came as part of my £20 worth of components bundle. Retails roughly, if you wanted to buy that graphics card now, it'd be about £25. We've obviously got the extra 4GB of RAM that we've put in there for an extra tenner. We've upgraded the processor, so we've got, it wasn't the fastest, but it was the next step down for processors for this FM2 socket motherboard. So we've got an AMD A10-6700, which cost about $17.95. And of course we have upgraded SSD because it only had a 500GB hard drive, and we've now added 120GB SSD, which we've now moved the operating system over onto that one, and we're using the hard drive as storage. So we are now up and running, booted up fine. We must of course run Nova Bench. Wouldn't be a benchmark if we hadn't done it. There isn't really much in the way of programs and stuff that are running on this system right now. So we are just going to hopefully get this up and running. Let's run these tests. Let's do it. Now, I love what it says it takes about a minute. It always takes longer than a minute. But so there were a few issues with this system. One thing I was really surprised about was when I took the heatsink off the processor. The processor just came straight out with it. It was like it was glue. It was like it was stuck to it. But the thermal paste, it was almost like it was magnetic. But the thermal paste was completely rock solid and dry. There was no real bonding in the sense of like it wasn't tacky or anything like that. But it was bonded in the sense that it felt like it was magnetized. So, but didn't have any issues in that in testing earlier on, or thermal throttling. With the graphics card, I had a major problem. I thought that the PCIe slot was dead because I kept putting graphics card in, and for whatever reason, it would not post a picture. It was sending no signal to the monitor. I tried 5 different graphics cards. None of them worked. Oh, here we go. We've got the graphics rendering at the moment, so we'll see how they come up in a sec. 20 frames per second. Not bad. But eventually, I thought it was the PCIe. I went through BIOS, I checked it if it had been disabled, everything was fine. And then eventually I put the card back in again, and I left it and just wandered off for about 5 minutes, and then suddenly it sprung into life. So I think it just took a really long time finding a driver that would work for it on the boot up, and it worked that way. Right. So you can see on this Nova Bench that I'd actually had run it yesterday, and it's actually dropped by 80 points, which is a bit odd. I wonder what lost its scores. CPU, so there must be something running in the background, but CPU maximum I've had is 792 in total, so CPU previously yesterday was 351. But if you look at the lowest score, which is when we tested it 10 days ago, we had a CPU score of 104, GPU 115, disk score 27, and RAM of 144. Remembering that RAM was already upgraded at that point. 114 was the original score that I had for it. But if you now compare that to what I did yesterday, we'll use the one we just ran because it's good to use that one. The GPU has obviously massive gone up. It's gone from 115 to 227. Disk score has gone up from 27 to 56, which still is a poor score. Need to look at that. Might be a driver issue or something there to do with the SSD. Maybe we can eke something more out of that. But of course the CPU has definitely gone up from 104 to 286, and of course the RAM is nice and steady as well. So I think we're pretty much okay as far as that. It's a great performance. Now remember, this has only cost me, so the computer itself was £20, RAM's £10, the new processor was $17.95, the SSD was $12.95. The desktop itself, as I said, was $20 and graphics card $25. So the total for this build, without the monitor on the peripherals, was £85.90. I guarantee you can find one of these monitors for a fiver, and I'm sure you can find some peripherals for under a tenner. Meaning for £100 you could have this set up. Now it hasn't got any speakers, but again, cheap pair of speakers plugged into an audio, you would have something to play. But we really need to find out whether or not this game will actually play. We're gonna have to try and find if it will run Just Cause. But let me just get MSI Afterburner up, and we will just check the frame rate of when that's coming through. Just check if there's anything else running. Nope. Okay. I've got another programs open. We're going to just check Just Cause 4 out, because we know all the other games in our benchmark, they ran fine. We had no issues with them. Little bit of lag in 3.3, but I would say that based on this upgrade, it should run fine 3.3 now. But the question is, will Just Cause 4 actually be better? Remember, this was something that was running at like 2 frames per second. This is a AAA title. It's a few years old, but it's still a AAA title as far as looks. Now, we've got great frames per second, but I have turned resolution down on this. So we will have to reset the resolution on this, as this is set up for like a low res display. And it doesn't look good. It's pixelated as fuck right now. So, we will... I mean, it's using all the RAM. We can see that. CPU is definitely getting close to being maxed out, although it may not have been yet. Interesting, graphics card fan is not spinning. It spins when you first turn it on, like literally just gives you that first burst of spin, but doesn't. So I think there must be an issue with either the drive. I think there's some sort of issue with the driver still. It is an old card, and that is one of the big problems with these older cards. Is like legacy drivers are difficult to find. But let's go into this and see what we can do. I just want to change the options on graphics. Oh yeah. Let's do that one. So we're going to find out if this can handle a 1280 by 1040 resolution. Fingers crossed. I can't actually read that. I think that's back. Okay, there we go. We've got the screen looks a little bit more clearer now. Let's go into a game and see. Okay, so we've got 16 frames per second, still using 6 gigabytes of RAM, but running is not comfortable. I don't think I'd really want to play this. It's not exactly reactive. Go on, blow something up. Let's see if we can get this to play a little bit better. Let's change those resolutions up. It's still a lot better than it was. I wouldn't play it like this, but let's maybe if we get the resolution, not 640 by let's try an 800 by 600 and hope that works a bit better. Doesn't look great again, but it's slightly better. Now we're getting 23 frames per second. It's again reasonable, but I think we've got to be able to get a few more frames per second out of this. Yeah, let's blow some shit up. Okay, let's reload it. Come on. Yeah. Love this about Just Cause, you get to blow stuff up. I mean, the fact is, this was only doing 2 frames, 1 and 2 frames per second. It was awful before. Now, we don't want to play a game like this the whole way through, probably not. but you could. And it's not horrendous. I've played worse. I mean, this is like playing a PlayStation 2 game now, which for a AAA game is not really what you want to be doing, but you know what? It's a bit of fun, isn't it? Okay, there we go. So, Just Cause 4 will play on this sort of system now. So, is there anything more I can upgrade on this? We were maxing out the RAM. The problem is I think we're bottlenecking it in the CPU, but the CPU was hitting near the 100% at several points there. So, without really doing much more on here, we could upgrade the graphics card to something a bit bigger. That's something possible. Maybe a 4GB card, something with a bit more punch to it. The issue there is once we start getting to the bigger cards, we've got to worry about power supply. The power supply in here is not set for dealing with a larger graphics card, so we would have to update that as well. And the question is for £100, would you buy? I mean, if you're into AAA gaming, would you really buy this sort of system? Probably not. If you're into more retro older games, and there are some amazing old games out there. My collection of stuff is primarily old games, but playing something like Half-Life 2, which is an amazing game to play. I mean, here we go, this is fear-free. I mean, this is looking pretty crisp on screen right now. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this. We've got low CPU usage at 30%. Let's see if we can get back to where we played up to. The screen's looking great. I guess I'm going to have to do new game. I hate doing new game. Okay. Let's see, because last time it just didn't feel brilliant. It didn't feel natural. It felt a bit jolty as you were going through it. And I'd like to see if we can get a bit of an improvement on that. But yeah, if you're trying to play games from sort of like the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe up to somewhere around the 2010 period, 2012 maybe even, then this would be completely fine. This would be a great old game system. The problem is with the hardware, you may find that if you're trying to play things like on Windows 10 for instance, you're trying to play something like XP. Oh, that's so much smoother. Before that was a absolute pain. Now, I mean, we're still getting a little bit of tearing, but I'm okay with that. I actually forgot where I'm going. No, it's this way. This way, and I've got to stab this guy, haven't I? Yeah, get some. That is completely playable. Come here, you. I'm going to shoot you. Come on, pop your head out. I will kill you. I will kill you. That's fine. I mean, this is a completely playable game. Compare that to what it was before. There was a little bit of stamina, there was a little bit of issues, and I am having a time of my life. Now I've had the time of my life, and I owe it all to you. And I died. So there you go. That is my thoughts on the HP desktop. It was £20 to buy. I've upgraded it with £65 worth of hardware, and I think it is a thoroughly playable experience. Now, would I suggest anyone to do this? Hell yeah, hell yeah. This stops this sort of thing going into landfill and going into like the dumps, recycling centres. So if you're into older games and you're not trying to play the latest AAAs, get yourself one of these. Go and do some scouring around on eBay and other places and get yourself a sweet little retro gaming PC. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.